Two of the biggest stars on the planet, 20 years of friendship, and a wedding one of them almost didn't show up to, Venice, Italy, 2014. George Clooney is marrying human rights lawyer Amal Alameddin on the Grand Canal in front of the entire world. Cameras everywhere. But his closest friend in Hollywood, his partner in crime since Ocean's 11, is nowhere to be found. Brad Pitt is on a film set thousands of miles away, missing one of the biggest days of his best friend's life. So what did Brad actually say about it when he was finally asked? The answer wasn't what anyone expected. No jealousy, no falling out, just Brad Pitt sitting across from a reporter, saying something so honest it revealed more about this friendship than any tabloid ever could. But that was only the surface, because underneath the jokes and the easy Hollywood charm, something else was quietly building. A bitter divorce was coming. A custody battle that would break a man down in public, and a friendship that would be pushed to its absolute limit by a woman who had every reason to walk away. This is the real story of Brad Pitt and George Clooney, not the version the tabloids sold you. To understand what Brad really said about George's marriage, you have to go back to where it all started. The set of Ocean's 11, two of the most famous faces alive playing con men who trust each other with everything. And off camera, something similar happens, they become close. Not red carpet close, real close. The kind where you prank each other between takes and actually pick up the phone when the other one calls. For years, both men wear the same label. Hollywood's untouchable bachelors. Brad moves through headline relationships, Jennifer Aniston, Gwyneth Paltrow, then Angelina Jolie, the relationship that will define his public life for over a decade. 6 kids. A family that looks from the outside unbreakable. George builds the opposite reputation. The man who swears again and again he will never marry, never have kids. Then in 2013, he meets Amal Alameddin, and everything he believed about himself quietly falls apart. I didn't know how empty my life was, he'll admit later, until I met her. By 2014, George is married. Brad and Angelina are still one of the most powerful couples on earth. From the outside, it looks like two men living out two different versions of happiness, but something is already shifting behind closed doors, and almost no one can see it yet. Because while the public sees two dazzling power couples, people close to them are noticing something colder. Angelina and Amal don't get along. And Brad, always the one holding the group together, is quietly caught in the middle, unsure how to close the gap. It's the kind of tension that never makes headlines, until one day it does. 2 years later, everything about Brad Pitt's life is about to change, and this friendship is about to be tested in a way neither man could have predicted. Let's go back to that interview. The one where Brad finally addresses the wedding he missed. George had once joked publicly that Brad was unreachable, too private, too guarded even for his closest friends to pin down. When a reporter repeats that line back to Brad, he doesn't get defensive, he laughs, and then he turns it into a compliment for George instead. George is extremely accessible, Brad says. He's one of our best representatives, he's funny as hell, he's a joy to be around. Then, almost like a joke aimed at himself, he adds, I guess maybe I'm more of a miserable bastard, I'm a loner. I'm quiet by nature. It sounds light, easy, but listen closely and it's something else entirely. Brad isn't just describing his personality. He's quietly explaining why he wasn't standing beside his best friend on the biggest day of his life, and why that absence never meant what people wanted it to mean. Because even then, Brad was already pulling away from the spotlight piece by piece while George thrived in it. Missing that wedding wasn't a snub, it was Brad being exactly who he'd always been. People wanted a scandal. What they got instead was two men who understood each other completely, even while living completely different lives. But that understanding, that years of trust, was about to be tested in a way no one saw coming. The unthinkable happens. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are getting divorced, and here's the part that stops you cold. George Clooney doesn't hear it from Brad, he hears it from a reporter. After 15 years of friendship, his closest friend can't even pick up the phone to tell him first. But there's something deeper going on, something Brad hadn't spoken about for years. Because during those years with Angelina, according to people close to both families, a quiet tension had been building. Angelina and Amal never got close. And more than once, Angelina reportedly criticized Amal in front of the group, while Brad sat there and said nothing, not a word in her defense, just silence. For George, that silence cut deeper than anyone realized at the time. He never confronted Brad publicly, never said a word to the press, but something between the two couples cooled. Even as the friendship between the two men somehow stayed alive underneath it. Then Brad's marriage collapses completely, and with it comes something far worse. A brutal custody battle over his 6 children, playing out for years in courtrooms and headlines, tearing apart the image the world once had of his perfect family. The man who always seemed untouchable is suddenly struggling in a way he's never shown before, and the friend he'd quietly drifted from, the one whose wife had been hurt by his silence, is one of the first people he turns to. What George does next says everything about who he really is, and no one saw it coming. As the divorce drags on, as the custody battle grows uglier, George doesn't hold on to the past. He shows up. Brad starts confiding in him about the weight of losing time with his kids, about a private nightmare unfolding in public. And George goes straight to the one person who has every reason to say no. His wife, Amal Clooney, isn't just George's wife, she's one of the most respected human rights lawyers alive. And according to people close to the situation, she agrees to help, not as a case. As a favor to her husband's oldest friend, the same friend whose silence once hurt her. Think about that for a second. The very thing that quietly cracked this friendship years earlier is now the thing that pulls everyone back together. Brad's lowest moment becomes the turning point nobody expected. One insider put it simply. George told Amal exactly how much this was destroying his friend. And instead of holding onto old resentment, Amal chose something rarer in this industry. She chose compassion. This wasn't a scandal. It was something Hollywood almost never shows you, loyalty tested by years of complicated history, and it held, but the story isn't finished yet. Because Brad's life was about to take one more turn nobody expected, and it would bring this friendship full circle. Years later, Brad starts a new relationship with jewelry executive Ania Coates de Ramon, and almost immediately, people around them notice something strangely familiar happening all over again. Just like George once did, Brad has fallen for a woman completely outside the entertainment world. And this time, Amal, the same woman who was once hurt, once wary, becomes the person Ania Coates turns to. At first, Amal is cautious, unsure of this new relationship, unsure if history is about to repeat itself. But once she sees it's real, that caution turns into something warmer. She becomes a source of comfort for Ania Coates as she steps into a level of fame she's never experienced before. By 2024, the full circle is complete. Brad and Ania Coates walk the red carpet in Venice, alongside George and Amal, in the same city where George and Amal were married 10 years earlier. The woman whose wedding Brad missed. The woman hurt by his silence. The same woman who fought to help him win back time with his children, now standing beside the next woman in his life. That is the real story behind what Brad Pitt said about George Clooney's marriage. Not a scandal, not a shocking confession. A 20-year friendship that survived silence, survived a devastating divorce, and somehow came out stronger on the other side. Today, Brad Pitt and George Clooney are closer than they've been in years. They reunited on screen in 2024, for Wolves, playing off the same chemistry they had over 2 decades earlier in Ocean's 11. Amal, once a source of quiet tension, is now described as one of Brad's biggest supporters, and Ania Coates has found something in her she never expected, a genuine friend. It's not the scandal the headlines promised you. It's something far more human, proof that even the most private friendships in Hollywood go through real damage, and sometimes real repair. So here's what I want to know. Was Brad wrong to stay silent all those years ago? Do you think George and Amal truly forgave him? Or is there still something neither of them has said out loud? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you want more real Hollywood stories like this one, not the fake headlines but the truth underneath them, subscribe, there's a lot more coming.